Time for Ask the Mayor on KWBE with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan, our regular Thursday program each week. Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
Doug, good morning. Fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's at least the temperature's still up there in the high 60s, so, you know, we haven't had that 55-degree weather that I'm not looking forward to. But
it's coming on the way here pretty quickly.
I understand. Yeah.
Looks like, today it's tomorrow will cool off, and then the weekend's going to be a little bit cooler. We are kind of heading into that time of year where we get into transitions and workloads change a little bit. Things you can do, things you can't do, adjust a little bit. One of the things they were talking about yesterday at the Board of Public Works meeting is a topic that obviously has been a bit of an inconvenience for people, and everybody knew that going in, I think, that major water main project, anytime you go straight through a downtown area, there's going to be a little bit of pain with that. But
pain and heartburn, and we appreciate everybody's patience. But we're really coming close to an end. I know that Jason Moore's folks worked on it last night. The rain kind of is holding off and sporadic, and so originally they were thinking that Thursday and Friday might be more rain-out weather than what it has been. So the guys are working. They did a little work last night to put some. They're going to try to put some bottom layers in today. Their goal is to see if they can kind of finish up between 3rd and 7th by the end of business tomorrow. I know at BPW he was talking about it might be a little more delayed because of the weather, and I found it interesting. I believe the asphalt comes from Waverly.
Somewhere up there, and you've got to be very temperature conscious of the material. And
so, I think today's weather is probably more conducive than the colder weather because you want to get it down here before it hardens in the truck. And so they're working really, really hard. They're doing a great job, and Myers did a great job. And, at the end of the day, it's going to probably save us a lot of water main breaks for the years to come.
And in any event, whether or not it rains or does not rain, at the worst, I'd say sometime next week, everything will be pretty much like it was before the
early
project started.
But they're really trying hard to make sure we get it done maybe by the end of the day tomorrow.
Yeah. What, just personally as mayor, have you gotten much, either positive, negative, indifferent feedback about it from downtown businesses that were directly affected by the traffic not going by?
There's been some feedback, certainly, and when you do a project like that, it's one of those things that everybody knows it needs to be done. Unfortunately, it's also one of those projects you have to do, in decent weather instead of the wintertime. So, for the most part, I think working with, we've tried to work really closely with downtown Main Street, and overall, I think it's one of those that we understand it has to get the project done. It's an inconvenience. The pros are that you don't have to tear it up section by section when you have a blowout or something that breaks up. I know we've had a number of businesses that are very, very understanding, and we really appreciate that.
When you have water mains that are as old as probably put in back in 1920, 1910?
Yes.
You're on borrowed time. You never know when the big problem's going to crop up, I guess.
Well, no, that's true. And I think the other thing that was kind of brought out is you never know what you're going to find when you start digging a hole in downtown, on a street that water mains were put in the early 20s. They found a vault on 6th Street, I believe it was. It goes clear down to a main, tap or whatever at the bottom of that. And so now, that slows things down. You got to fill that up and make sure that's secure. So I think there was a number of surprises. I think as they did the project, I think a couple of other surprises was how deep some of those water lines were buried. When you have a extension ladder in the bottom of a hole, that depth is down there pretty far, and I'm sure there's a few people that look down those holes, and I was not one of them because I'm not going to get that close. But it's just it was a pain. Most of the pain will be gone after we get through it. We're going to get done in time for Main Street to have the pumpkin night, and but hats off to, first of all, the Myers Construction, and hats off to Jason and his crew. Hats off to the water department as well, because it took a lot of man hours on our side of it just making sure we try to supervise and try to keep everybody informed. And at the end of the day, we know that the money that we got on a 0% loan, which in today's standards is really, really good, we know that that has been put to use to really help Beatrice maintain for the future.
You know, it's interesting, and I already knew this because of past experts on local history and, you know, way back when in Beatrice, but I know Jason was talking a little bit about it following the meeting yesterday about what's under those streets and what used to be, old coal chutes where they stored the fuel of the day there, and that some, vehicles been going right over those areas, and I don't know if that's a hazard or not, but it's certainly something that you wonder how there haven't been a few situations where the heavy vehicles of today haven't just gone through an area like that.
Yeah, and I think we've taken care of most of those spots.
Yeah.
But there's something to be said to try to get everything taken care of, and there's a safety component to that.
Yeah. Still some work being done around town on streets, things like that. And you've had pretty good weather by and large right through this early part of the fall. I think it was mentioned yesterday, part of Industrial Row is going to be closed for about a week for some repair there.
Right.
So people probably should keep that in mind. I know sometimes they use that kind of as a bypass on Ashland to Industrial to the highway there. So that's going to be about, a week long?
I think that's about a week, yeah. I think, one of the things that we're probably, and I think on the update that we heard yesterday is that, we're trying to get a number of these street repairs done before it gets to the point where it's going to be too hard to truck in the asphalt. Mm-hmm. And I was amazed too, is, you talk about planning ahead. The streets department has planned ahead. As soon as it gets to the point where they're taking care of those roads, they're going to move to crack and seal a number of streets, and particularly the streets that they're going to resurface the next year.
Mm-hmm. And before long, it's getting ready for snow removal.
It
Who
is.
knows? I think in the past, probably the earliest I can remember is maybe about now when we had a pretty good snowstorm a few years back. But I know we had that one Halloween storm one year, but it's any day now. It's kind of one of those things where you move into a different mode of operation.
That's exactly right.
You mentioned the state water loan in addition to the downtown work. Of course, that enabled you to put in the redundant transmission line at Wellfields, and I think it also helped out with what the backup generator or the generator system at the water pumps. So this, without that loan, you really things like that, could you have accomplished them very easily just on city funding alone, or would that have been nearly impossible to do that?
I think it would have been very, very hard for us to do it without having some type of impact on the city budget, and where the money would have come from would have been difficult. I think, hats off again to Tobias and the city administration for, going out and seeking out, possible loans. Because when you think about it, we've done the downtown project, like you said, we've done the generator, plus we've done the redundant system that brings water, quality water into Beatrice. And so when you think about that, I think the one thing that we've always tried to do is take a look at what the future is and not just for today. And so I think we're in good shape. And without that 0% loan, we would not be where we are.
You have to also take into account any growth in the future and how that affects capacity issues and things like that. So
that's exactly right.
One other note following the discussion regarding the downtown project yesterday, it was mentioned that the curb and sidewalk work a little bit farther east of the downtown, I think 10th to 13th, if I remember right, somewhere in there, that could be moved up to this fall. I know there was kind of a question whether or not that's done this year or in spring.
Right. I think I think it might get moved up. Not 100%. We're contracting that out, so we're working with the contractor on that one. And again, we're preparing. That helps us prepare for, unfortunately, next year when the state comes in and resurfaces 136 right from, I think, the railroad tracks to like 20th Street or something like that. So, we get the water project done, and it looks like the state's coming in right behind us.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of the good reasons of getting one thing about getting the downtown done now is you don't want to have to go back in after the state comes in and takes care of any type of resurfacing that they're going to do.
I'm going to assume a resurfacing project isn't nearly as disruptive as a water main one, because you go usually down one side and then you come back the other or something like that.
Right.
So,
I'm hoping that you're absolutely correct there.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that's, hey, improvements have to be made.
Well,
and
it does. And, one of the things that I've learned over the past years, either on the council or as mayor, when it comes to state highways, they have their time frame and they're going to get it done. And I know it's kind of funny. Another one that, and I thought about it the other day, stoplights that are on 77 and the stoplights that are on 136. I have had calls about, well, why don't you change those? And, I've had some concerns about a couple of intersections, and unfortunately, those are all under the control of the Nebraska Department of Roads, and they probably have a good reason of why they do or don't do what they do.
I know they changed the 6th and Court one to just a flashing red stop this week, which I think probably worked out for a lot of people. It was easier to get through that area.
I noticed that. I thought, oh, well, gee, I wish we had that done.
Now that we're almost done with the project.
That was my first thought as I stopped there and then went through.
I know a lot of people would probably like to see that tried at 5th and Court too, but we're
about done.
Yeah, we're about done.
So,
and
we're going to be in a better place here in a week or so, and next year we'll be in a better place with 136. So, again, that's progress.
And everybody will be happy.
Yes,
we think. 8:42 is our time on Ask the Mayor. We'll have more in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan today. One of the things that's finishing up, or they were, watering the sod down there yesterday. The Gage County Foundation trailhead right next to Dempster there, where they put in the, I guess it's called the sponge park. That's kind of the informal word for it, but it's a drainage retention pond where it's going to handle the water that comes off all the concrete there, and kind of get an idea what it's like now. Thought we might get a test case here with some rain.
I don't know if we got enough rain today or not.
Yeah, but looks kind of nice. It'll be interesting to see how that all works out.
It will. When you do a project, anybody does a project, and you put in a sidewalk, you got and parking, you have to make you can't have any more runoff before. After you put it in is what you had before. And, of course, we would have a little bit more runoff because of the concrete that water just doesn't absorb down. So they put in what they call a sponge park there, basically a retention pond. But I think it's really more of a model or a showcase on...
kind of a demonstration project almost.
Right, of what we can do or what we can advise for people who put in parking lots on their property and they need to have a retention pond. It's really, really nice. I think it'll help the environment around it, and it just cleans up that corner.
Yeah. I know there's been discussion before about a retention area in association with like Hannibal Park and that neighborhood that goes to the south down there. Do you think, looking at how, even though this is a small area by the trailhead, do you think maybe it might kind of give some indicator as to whether or not that could be applied in another instance like that?
It might be.
Yeah.
Again, since I'm limited in my engineering experience there, that would be something that James will probably look at, because I know we've looked at that issue a number of years.
Yeah. So anyway, it looks nice. There's some dirt off to the west of it, but I understand that's going to be planted out too and redone there. Yep. So sooner or later it'll all look green space again.
Exactly.
So going into a tough time of year to get anything to grow, but that's the way it times out. So I
guess if we have a really good, end of October and first part of November, we'll be okay.
Yep. Plus any snow cover will help out too.
That will help it. Yes,
that's for sure.
That's the worst part. If you don't get the snow cover, it's hard on everything.
Yeah. Just driving by the other day to see how it's going. It looks like a lot of progress made on the U-Stop convenience store at East Beatrice there. That's a project of Todd Heido and his family there. I think the building's pretty much up. I noticed they were putting in the entrance off of Scott Street just the other day. Yep. There was the issue about, will there be highway access from 136 on that? I know it's kind of a long-term thing because you have to deal between jurisdictions of government, but any news on that as to whether or not that might come about?
I have not had an update on that. I think we're still working, I think the city administration is still working with the Department of Roads and working with Todd Heido. I think the project's coming along really well. I think it's it's a great addition to the city of Beatrice. And so I think, as we continue to move with, the new elementary out there and the high school and on that end of town, I think it's really nice that we have another business that's going up, and I think it's great to see, again, some progress.
Yeah. It almost kind of looked like on the north side of the property they had, I don't know if it's kind of carved out or not, but where that highway entrance could be located to the property, I don't know if that was intentional or if that's just the way it looks right now.
Could very well be.
Yeah.
I really haven't had many updates on that. So.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Anyway, like you say, it's a nice addition, and goes
Well,
right out to the high school. I imagine we'll see some traffic there because of that alone, and
Right.
Around that whole area, which is a growing area. What with that in the middle school too, you'll see traffic pick up around that whole area. So
You will. There'll be, some nice traffic counts. That's part of the lifeblood of any business is the traffic counts, and it certainly is for a convenience store. And it's going to be very, very nice to have that on the east edge of town.
driving by the new elementary school site the other day, it seems like every time you go by there now, you're seeing more concrete as far as access being installed around that school now, which kind of brought up the question about when does the city's role kind of kick in terms of connecting those entrances and places to, like, say, Lincoln Street and 33rd.
Well, again, it depends on, once they get everything going, we're working on that. We've got to be a little bit careful of what we use and how we connect it because, as everyone knows, we're doing the street on Lincoln and 33rd Street. What we try to avoid is having to tear out a bunch of major concrete work that will have to be torn out as we do the streets. And so there'll probably be some transitions there we're going to have to put in as we connect to the Lincoln and 33rd Street project, because that'll be a big project that will probably be broke up over it could be maybe even 2 summers.
Yeah.
We have to really be smart on and also work with the school on what we do with those drives so that at the end of the day, it's not, we don't want to dig a hole and then fill it right back in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Want to make sure everything's ready to go and you don't have to double back and do something again.
So, there may be some rock, for instance, from some of those entry points to get into the concrete before, because like I said, we don't want to have to go in and rip out concrete that they paid for.
Okay. Energy efficiency program that you offer through the Board of Public Works now, that kind of takes the place of one that used to be with Nebraska Public Power District, if I remember.
Correct.
And then you went away from them as a wholesale supplier and a different power source now. So you fund your own through the BPW. Had some interest in it, not a whole lot, but had a few loans.
Yes.
A report from City Clerk Aaron Sadoff yesterday that some people are taking advantage of it.
Certainly they are. And, I think when you look at that program, and I don't remember exactly the limit, I think at one point in time, if you own a home that valuation was $250,000 or $275,000, somewhere in there, you would qualify for energy efficiency loan if you put in the right, heat pump or HVAC system that had the right energy efficiency SEERs to it. So I know we've had a number of those that it's a 3-year loan. I think, the conversation is we need to take a look at, is that 275 the right number now that valuations went up somewhere between 13 to 14%. So maybe we need to add that 13 or 14% to the low end. But at the end of the day, it has helped out a number of people afford a high energy efficiency system for their home, which does 2 things. Number 1, it saves them money because they don't have to borrow money or do a home loan to do it. And number 2, it gives them a way to save on their energy bills. So it's a good program.
I think the interest rate 3%, pretty good deal this time.
Right now it is.
Yeah, we couldn't say that like 3 or 4 years ago. There, rates were way down, but now, it's up and up and up. Home buyers know that at this point. So.
Exactly right. If you go for a loan today, it's a lot. It's at least double, if not a little more than that 3%.
Can't really go into all details of the program, but it's on the city's website. You can click on a couple of things and find out all about it if you qualify and that type of thing.
And the other thing to remember too is in the energy efficiency program is what you put in from electric or even for water infrastructure. There's rebates.
Yeah.
And that was part of the NPPD program that we now fund since we've left NPPD. I think that we had a number of rebates from last year for about $17,000. And so again, it encourages the homeowner to put in a little more efficient heat system, if that's what you're doing, heat and air conditioning system, and then getting some rebates that almost pay for that extra cost going up to a little more efficient.
And if I remember right, I think the rebate's what just applied to your utility bill, isn't it? Does it come off of there?
I believe it does.
Yeah, so there's some way to do it, but worth checking into if you're going to make an improvement.
You know, if you find yourself, you know, it's always one of those things that, you know, when your heat pump doesn't start or you go downstairs and you find out there's leaking water out of your, you know, your unit, you're going to go, oh, I don't want to make this call. And I think I didn't use the rebate program, but I had one put in, now it's almost 2 years ago. And, you know, when they say, well, you could do this, that might get you by for a year or two, or you really need to replace it. And you're kind of going, oh. Yeah. That's one of the major expenses of a home.
Yep. Can't hurt just to check into it, see if it works.
Absolutely worth it. It's like you said, it's on the website. Yeah. Really easy to get the information about and really easy to apply for.
Okay. Back to wrap up Ask the Mayor with Bob Morgan in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan. Just a couple of minutes left. We had a caller call in. They want to know, and this person has a disability. They were wanting to know why we don't have top-loading recycling bins anymore, and we were kind of talking about that in the break. I'm not totally sure if they mean a container for curbside or I don't know. Any insight on that one? Or
well, what I would probably recommend is they go to our website and call the Mars folks. We've got a wonderful person who takes the phone calls and does the scheduling. She should be able to at least get enough information that she can give give the caller a good answer. To this point in time, I'm not sure I can.
At least know what the recycling options are and the services and that type of thing. So.
And the one thing we do want to remind people of, it's a great service. We do contract that out. And so it's really not part of Mars, but we do contract it out. And I'm sure they can help us. Yeah. I'm sure they can help answer that question.
I wonder if they might have been referring to the recycling site down by the municipal auditorium. But, well, in any event, the number to call would be the Midwest Area Refuse Solutions.
Absolutely.
So,
yep.
Okay.
Good question.
Yep.
Just don't know the answer.
Yep. Hey, we can't know everything, I'll tell you what. Just a quick update. This is the first year your airport is under city budget operation rather than an airport authority. Anything new there in terms of, I know they have some projects out there they're kind of looking at, but...
we keep working on the projects that they have had. I think the authority has always put together a pretty good plan on when, runways and those type of things need to be updated. I know right now we're working on some repairs from the hail that's being done by a local company here in town, and I did not attend the meeting that happened, I think it was Tuesday, but I know that right now we think things are looking pretty good. We're trying to take a look at, how do we get more hangars. I think there's always a need for those out there, and I think Dennis Smith's doing a great job as the general manager of the airport, and I think we see some good traffic. Especially, we've got a couple of crop dusters who fly out of there, and that kept them busy all summer. Yeah,
you see some big business aircraft come in every now and then too, on a regular basis too. So
you do. Yeah. You do.
I think they had a project to kind of relocate the fuel island out there too. I assume that's still pending.
That's still pending, yes.
There, so okay. Just a minute left. A couple things. You have a council meeting coming up Monday night. Not in the just here recently. You had a couple of sponsorships for Hannibal Park improvements. I understand another one's coming up.
Right from the Beatrice Community Hospital, and so that's another sponsorship that will help us continue to make Hannibal Park a better place.
The company you hired, they must really know what they're doing. They're out there.
They're doing a great job.
Yeah, so it's kind of helps fund some things that takes a little pressure off property taxpayers too.
Exactly, and this company's doing things that we just don't have the people power and the know-how to do it, and they're doing a good job. And we thank our sponsors, and I think it'll work out really well for our sponsorships as well.
You have an LB 840 loan application Monday night too?
We do. We have somebody who wants to start a development, commercial development, and that's LB 840 is a great tool for seed money to get people to come to town and create a business. And this one, I think, it maybe create a business and have a couple spaces for a couple other new businesses. So right now, that's about all the information I can share on that,
Okay.
but it's a great opportunity, and I think it's a great tool that we have.
We'll find out the details soon.
Yes.
Mayor, thanks a lot for coming in. We'll see you Monday night.
All right. Thank you, Doug.